Hey everyone, this is Miss Wallace, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a recap of what we did today in class. So let's get started. We had our welcome riddle, as we like to call it. Which word is the odd one out? Stun, ton, evil, letter, mood, bad, snap, straw. It confused a lot of people. I think I only had two people who actually got it right on the first go round. So if you think you know the answer to the riddle, feel free to send it to me in an email. Okay. Come on, come on. All right. So lesson goals. Read our Middle Eastern fairy tale. We're going to look at making inferences, character motivation, analyzing plot, and thematic development. So really in class, we didn't go over so much what you can actually do in the module yourself. We're looking at those terms that may be new, maybe they're old, maybe it's a different way of looking at or applying them. And what I tried to do for us in class today was isolate groups of terms of new information so that you can work on those and feel really strong and comfortable with them and recognize them in different passages. So the warm up was naming a favorite fairy tale. Everybody had a lot of fun with that. My personal favorite is still Beauty and the Beast. It's a lifelong favorite right there, even now. And then we went into our first four literary terms. I'm never going to present literary terms to you more than in groups of four and probably three. So this first one was evidence, and we talked about the key takeaways from this slide. The fact that evidence often has paraphrases and quotations, especially like if I'm grading your paper and I ask for textual evidence, I'm going to look for cited evidence like paraphrases and quotations that you've used to argue your point or to illustrate what you're talking about. You have to have evidence. Just because you say you have evidence does not mean you're actually using evidence. You have got to use outside resources, you're citing them, and so forth. And then evidence itself is used to persuade and to give strength to your argument, powerful arguments, and it's to help the reader reach a conclusion and form an opinion about something. So we had an example of how do you look at evidence in real life. My example was my almost 2-year-old likes to eat stuff, put things in her mouth, and one time we ended up having to go to Scottish Rite. So sometimes if I can't figure out what she's had in her mouth, I look at the evidence. I look at the wrappers. I look at the toys that are all over the floor. What did she eat? Play-Doh? I don't know. I'm looking at the evidence. And then inferences. Logical deductions are made based on premises assumed to be true. Like you assume that August is the hottest month in Georgia based on, like previous data and maybe your own anecdotal experience of how the weather is in August. You can assume that by looking out the window that it's a sunny day. So my inference is that it's probably pretty hot and muggy outside. Um, so we're looking at patterns. We're looking at things we can be assumed to be true about a character. Maybe the character you're reading about makes habitually poor decisions. So we can infer that they're going to get themselves into a lot of trouble. That kind of an idea. Okay. And then the next one is climax. This is part of the plot cycle. And this is that point of highest emotional intensity, and it's where we have a turning point in the action. Or the storyline. So in I think fourth period today, we used illustration of The Lion King. That's a new movie. Well, not new. The remake has just come out recently. Um, and spoiler alert, I'm about to tell you what happens if you have not seen it. But the big climactic moment here. At first, they thought it was when Simba's dad died. No, that's actually part of the rising action, the increasing of problems for Simba. Um, what is actually the climactic point here is when Simba's dangling over the little fiery pit, Scar's got his claws in his paws, and he leans into Simba's ear and says, "I killed Mufasa." The the turning point in everything is when Simba finally realizes that he is not guilty of his father's death. And that's when he gets the great surge of power and energy and anger and turns around and defeats Scar. So sorry, spoiler alert. But that would be the climactic moment. And then theme, the central message, concern, or purpose. It can be directly stated or it can be indirectly stated. You got to figure it out by looking at, looking at the overarching idea that's going on. All the happenings of the rising action, the climax, falling action. There's several, there's some that you could take from The Lion King itself, overarching idea of one thing that they do directly state over and over, the circle of life. That's kind of a big theme there. Um, creatures live, creatures die, return to the grass and help nourish and continue on that great circle of life. That kind of an idea. And so that would definitely be an overarching idea that continues on. We start The Lion King with the coronation of a baby lion cub. We end the movie with the coronation of a baby lion cub because the circle of life continues on. Okay. And then we played a little show me game where we're looking at these different. I know my little camera is in the way right here. But we looked at these different selections, and what I wanted to do when you looked at these different passages, show me which one is inference or which one is theme or what are the other two? Climax and evidence. So the big giveaway for evidence right here is this piece. This is, I guess I don't have to hold down. And here are the answers. Evidence is very clearly given away because it's actually got a citation right there, an MLA in-text citations. Inference, the big giveaway is, I took a look at the board, I looked at the evidence and realized you were right. So Sheldon admits that there is a inference that he made right there. And then climax, this is the point that Dr. Martin Luther King is driving home in his I Have a Dream speech. This is the pinnacle idea that he wants everybody to grasp a hold of. Black men as well as white men would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then this passage right here is an excerpt from poet Annabel Lee. Sometimes students confused climax and theme right here, but if you look at this passage, it's not really driving home a particular point or there's nothing terribly climactic about it. It just keeps repeating the idea of love and how their love is so wonderful and great. And then let's see. And then the climax, of course, is driving home the point. All right. 4 more terms. We've got analyze. We're looking at all the parts of something. It's like a puzzle. Why do we do this when we read? And my other little bubble that I'm going to move my head away from is who does this in your job? So, for instance, I do this in my job. I'm going to look at your pretest scores. I'm going to look at your individual answers for each of your questions and think about where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, where's your room for growth, how do I approach a given topic in class so that you can best access it and be as successful as you want to be. So analysis, we're looking at all the little parts of a story or of an essay or whatever, of a sentence even, and dissecting it to glean understanding. Character motivation. Why do characters do what they do? 2 basic reasons. Intrinsic, internally. Extrinsic, it's outside yourself. So, for instance, me, how am I motivated to do well in school as a teacher? I am intrinsically motivated. I take personal pleasure in watching you be successful and watching you, do well in your schoolwork, and those who struggle, overcoming their struggles, and it motivates me to create more resources to make videos like this or whatever to help you do the best you can in school. Extrinsically, I want to make that money, right? Because I got to pay the bills and feed my kids and stuff like that. Um, and buy some shampoo and wash my hair, stuff like that.